Arizona here with 3 important self-defense lessons for you as we are coming out of lockdown. Now the nightclubs are opening and there are some potential new situations that we're not quite used to that could be dangerous for us. Perhaps, maybe not. The whole point of these lessons is about empowering you with practices and information so that you can enjoy these situations safely. Self-defense is not in opposition to having fun. This is very much about you having things in place so that you can go into those riskier situations with plans in place so that you know you're going to be safe even if it does start going bad. Because we can't always, if we were always to avoid every single possible situation that was slightly dangerous, we'd probably never get anything done. We'd never have any fun. So let's be realistic, okay? So we're speaking about kind of one night stand sort of today, but I'm going to cover a couple of other topics in this series also. So my first lesson, number 1 for us today is what a person does small, they often do big, okay? So when we're making that initial judgment about a person, are they safe? Are they the kind of person I might want to spend a bit more time with, accept a drink from, exchange numbers with, whatever it is, let's actually validate those signals that we're getting early on, okay? So if a person, for example, is a little bit pushy with boundaries, but in a small way, maybe forcing drinks on you or not really listening to what you say or being quite dismissive about the things that you say, or maybe just, not being that great in the way that they're treating you, there is a possibility that they could do that on a bigger scale, okay, in a more serious situation if the environment was a bit different. Say, for example, you're back at their house and it's one-on-one, and then now they've kind of got that safety to sort of reveal their true selves and you don't really have strategically a great position to resist, escape, blah, 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 blah. So the first thing I just kind of want to say is when we're making the initial judge of character on a person and we're starting to get to know them, I just want you guys to know that what a person does small, they often do big, okay? I've created a game, a very short little game for you to walk through a scenario and test your skills in identifying some red flags and what decisions you would make based on that information. One of the key things that I say in that is, often people do display red flag behaviours and they might not actually be perpetrators, they might not be, really serious offenders or something like that. You could almost say that red flag behaviours are somewhat normalised in our society. But the point is, I have this catchphrase, store, don't ignore. So what that means is when we see a red flag, when we feel a red flag within our bodies, we feel a bit of a resistance in our body, the point is to store that information, not immediately dismiss it because you're not going to act on it right now, okay? That's really key, really, really key, okay? We get these signals for a reason. We are valid in what we're picking up on. Just because we're not ready to run away or, ostracize that person, whatever, doesn't mean that we can't keep that information in our mind so that if the situation is more serious later on, then we have that previous context there, that information that helps us make a better decision further down the line. So to summarize, what a person does small, they often do big. So if a person is being a little bit off, maybe they're not the perfect character or whatever, and you're getting those signals early on, don't dismiss them, store them, don't ignore them. You can still go into that situation if you want to, that's fine, okay. But keep that information in your mind and then take precautions as you go to make yourself more safe as the situation progresses. Number 2, okay? If we do go into a situation and we have stored, not ignored, that a person may have slight red flag behaviours, they might be a little bit pushy, maybe they're a bit boisterous, whatever it is. So say, for example, going back to the house, okay, I'm going to give you a practical tip here. I want you to, when you go into that house, I want you to make a mental note. Where did they put the keys? Did they lock the door? How easy is it to access the exit if I had to escape in a urgent situation, okay? really useful to just take notice of these things so that if the situation does get worse later, you're not scrambling to try and find that information, it's already there. And as well, this is going to give you a level of confidence in the situation. Say, for example, it did escalate, you have done a small amount, light preparation work in advance, which is going to help you with that panic reaction, okay? You are already slightly emotionally prepared for this. You are information prepared for this. So your short circuit to a premature freeze is probably going to be lessened because you've taken some steps, okay? We're kind of building that self-confidence as we go, okay? Number 3, okay? One thing that I want to say is when we're speaking about like nightclub safety, nighttime safety, the concept of improvised tools or, everyday carry kind of comes up often. That whole keys in your hand thing or whatever other method people have of equalizing themselves with an improvised weapon. So people will often carry keys in their hands, or there's someone that I met once who carried a water pistol with spice water in it in their bag. People carry all sorts of things. So the first thing I want to say about that is, remember, this tool actually has to be in your hand if you're going to use it. There's no point in this tool being in your bag, for example, or in a pocket somewhere hard to reach, and the situation's happening and you're fiddling to try and get there. It's really hard when adrenaline is going to kind of do that fine motor control. So whatever your everyday carry is, your improvised tool, that needs to be in hand before the situation starts escalating. So just bear that in mind, okay? The second thing that I want to say about that as well is, have you ever actually used this improvised tool or whatever else it is? Because at one of my previous self-defense courses, I created just a sort of, I stuck a bunch of cardboard boxes together to make a kind of thick cardboard layer. And then actually I got everyone to attack that cardboard pad with keys in their hands. And actually we discovered that it's quite sore when you try and attack a person with keys in your hands. Like, you actually end up damaging your own hands quite a lot. So there's a specific way that we should be holding it that's going to protect our hands a bit better. Okay, so for this person who had the water pistol, have you ever actually shot your how good a shot are you? Do you have good accuracy? Could you imagine yourself whipping out a water pistol full of spice water, targeting that in someone's eyes, all in the heat of the moment? With practice, perhaps, but without practice, questionable, okay? So I would say don't over-rely on your everyday carry. Make sure you've got some practice using it, and then actually realistically think to yourself, what are the consequences of me using this? For example, if your everyday carry is some kind of pen knife or something dramatic like that, or like a tactical pen where you're going to stab a person, withdrawing that could escalate a situation. Are you realistically going to stab a person with a pen when they ask you for the time? Have a realistic think about this before you over-rely on these tools to help you in those situations. Just one last quick bonus point for you. A torch is actually a really, 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 really good improvised tool everyday carry, because it has the benefit of blinding a person, okay? You flash a light in a person's eyes and they, especially in a dark setting, can be a bit more disorientated, okay? So that's gonna help us with the whole buying time kind of disorientation thing. And then second of all, a good, decent torch, you can usually get kind of like the metal ones for quite cheap, to be honest, a couple of quid. You could definitely use that to hit a person and not seriously damage. You could do some serious damage, but a tactical pen or a knife is much more serious than blunt trauma to the face, kind of a hard torch to the cheek or whatever it is. So again, just thinking about the actual consequences of using those tools, torch is probably one of the best everyday carry improvised tools that you could carry in your purse. And when it comes to the kind of legal standpoint as well, if for any reason the police were to stop you. Maybe you had assaulted a person who tried to assault you, you assaulted them in self-defense with a torch. You could reasonably say to the police, I was carrying this torch to light up the front door when I get home, or whatever it is. Whereas if you were carrying a knife or a tactical pen, that use may be a bit more questionable. Depends on the kind of disguise of the pen. Is it functional? Is it clearly just a stabbing pen? You know, and you don't want to end up in legal trouble yourself. So when it comes to those everyday carry items, it's got to be something that could be legitimately used for normal life. It's not just a weapon, okay? Because if it's just a weapon, you're going to get in trouble. So, and one last point about the legal thing is, in the law, in the UK, the law is reasonable and proportionate force, okay? So if a person asks you for the time and then kind of puts their hand around your waist or something like that, or grabs your crotch or whatever it is, stabbing them in the eye, probably not proportionate, okay? Pushing them away, making distance, proportionate, reasonable, okay? So bear that in mind. And one last tip. This is only supposed to be 3, but there are loads of tips to share. So 3.5 is if we are in an outdoors environment and there's maybe CCTV around, it can be really, really helpful for us to adopt that fence position as popularised by Jeff Thompson. So that's, you know, if a person is kind of like coming near us, or we're kind of doing that universally recognised signal of open hands, you know, I am in a defensive posture, I'm not looking for trouble, so that if the CCTV was watched back, you could be evidenced as trying to de-escalate the situation, not trying to antagonise, and that would hopefully help you stay in the clear if it did come to some criminal proceeding. So there we go, 3 tips for you. Number 1, while a person does small, they often do big. So when judging a person, when making that initial judgment of a person's character, trustworthiness, just bear in mind that if there are small scale red flag behaviours, if you were to amplify the scale of that, what could that potentially lead to? And just bear that in mind, okay? Again, not saying that you have to immediately bail out of a situation, because they may well just be a person who displays red flag behaviours but isn't going to do anything about it. This is more just about context for later decision making, if things were to get more serious, or just doing little steps along the way that can help you further down the line, again, if it did happen to go serious. And I'll just remind you one more time, you can actually play a wee game that I've made for you to test that knowledge, to put it into practice in a kind of simulated real life scenario. Number 2, if you do go to another person's house, unfamiliar environment, I would always recommend, especially if there's a context of some minor red flags, that you watch where they put the keys when you go in. Notice, did they lock the door or not, okay? What is the ease of access like out of the building? Is it easy to get to this front door? What's beyond the front door? Is there another, communal building door? Make notes about this so that if it does get serious and you are under a lot of pressure and you need to start planning that escape, you've got that information to hand already, rather than trying to guess, because the last thing that you want to do is be, making your break to exit and then the door is locked and then, you're kind of screwed. If you can do that little bit of forethought, a little bit of pre-information gathering, that's going to help you further down the line. Future you will thank you. And then number 3 is, remember, improvised tools are only useful if they are already in hand when the situation is going down. Other points about that: have you practiced with this? Do you actually know how to use it? Have you realistically thought of the consequences of drawing that in a situation? Are you over relying on this? Are you thinking to yourself, oh, I've got this water pistol in my bag, so I don't need to pay attention to my surroundings, or I could just, willy-nilly walk into this group of people who look very dangerous. We're not going to let improvised tools be a replacement for situational awareness, our basics, yeah. And then I had some 3.5s and stuff in there, but you can rewind back to look at those, okay? Cool, okay, so 3 points for you about staying safe as we come out of lockdown and the night scene. Cool, bye!